the right wing continues to embarrass itself when it comes to entertainment. Last Thursday, Fox News host Emily Compagno declared that she was a Trekkie.
Best of luck to the feminist director. I'm sure yours will be a hit.
Yeah. That's why I am a Trekkie.
Ooh,
not Star Wars. All right, guys,
Long
we're
and
out now in just a moment.
Holy freaking cringe. Wow. Okay. There's a lot wrong with this. All right. First off, that's a backwards Vulcan salute. Come on. Secondly, it's, I don't think it's Trekkie. It's more Trekker. Trek is what somebody who's never watched any of the series, speaking as a nerd, of course, calls the fans. Okay. Look, I'm sure many of us don't mind being called a Trekkie, whatever. I don't actually care, but just pointing it out because it's pretty apparent that Compagno has never actually watched any Star Trek, and you would know that actually Star Trek is pretty woke. Okay. I mean, look, the Federation, for example, is a post-capitalist utopia where the driving force of humanity is no longer the acquisition of wealth, but instead exploration. I know, right? Crazy. In fact, Star Trek has criticized capitalism quite a bit. The Ferengi were actually created as a hyper-capitalistic, misogynistic antagonist race. Now, they flopped. This was in the Next Generation. That idea flopped incredibly bad because they were overly comical, right? Nobody took them seriously. It actually took Deep Space Nine to redeem them a little bit, and of course, it's using brilliant characters like Quark, one of the best characters, I think, to come about in Star Trek. Thanks to the actor and the writing, it was just really good, but he was still, for the most part, hyper-capitalist and very misogynistic. That said, some of the themes that were dealt with Star Trek, and going back to DS9, because the wife and I are doing a full DS9 rewatch, is when Quark's brother, who works at the bar, started a union. So, very pro-union, according to Ira Stephen Bear. So, being pro-union, anti-war crime, because again, same series and different series dealt with the issues of terrorism, with the Maquis and with the Bajoran resistance, etc. And of course with the occupation by the Cardassians and the fascism, how that empire is essentially fascist. And then it's dealt with, of course, for women's rights and even Enterprise when it comes to gender. Like the third, there's an episode where you got a third gender, right? That was trying to fight for equal rights. And so you had all this equality. All that's in Star Trek over the years. Way before conservatives started being apparently offended by wokeism. Look, I can guarantee that there's a lot of episodes that were done, not just back in the 90s, but also in the 80s, but also back in the 60s, that had a lot of so-called fans very irritated. And what they would have called woke today. Except that we didn't all hear about it because there wasn't the internet. So, that said, a lot of the themes discussed in all those old Star Treks and new today, pretty woke. A lot of wokeism involved. And, of course, unapologetically progressive. But getting people to look at these different viewpoints in the context of, look, we're looking at modern problems, but using space as a backdrop. That said, you know what else has also been woke the whole time? Star Wars. Again, you had a strong female character helping to fight a fascist empire using a literal violent revolution. Sounds kind of woke. Okay. And by the way, they didn't treat women differently. They didn't treat black people differently. Lando. They didn't treat different. They didn't treat aliens differently, except the empire was pretty racist. And so, look, pretty woke. Both series, very woke, because it turns out a lot of our art and a lot of our institutions are progressive. I know. And that reflects our culture as well. But here's the thing. If you want to criticize the Disney Star Wars films, there's some pretty good points to do so. For example, there's some nonsensical plot points. Somehow Palpatine returned. Kind of ridiculous, right? And that's an example of the kind of problems that actual Star Wars fans have with it. And again, there's also some issues with, I personally have some issues with Star Trek Discovery and how they keep trying to I guess, to one up the big bad every season to where it gets like every single season is a universe galaxy ending threat. And it's like, okay, you're just doing power creep now. And you're not really focusing on what made Star Trek really good is, some of the filler episodes, some of the ones where you get to know the character a little bit better. You get more invested in a character, a bridge crew member, and they didn't really do that as much in the newer series. And it kind of bums me out, but I see why, because you only have 10 episodes a season. Whereas back in the 90s, you had like 24, 26 episodes per season. So you could put some filler in, and some of the filler was terrible. Code of Honor is a great example of how, terrible some of those filler episodes can be. Or Sub Rosa. And again, people's opinions vary on which episodes are terrible or the worst or the best or whatever. But generally, those episodes, some of those episodes are very important for character development. You don't see that a lot today. But none of that has anything to do with woke. I think a lot of the problem here is more of the corporate consumerism, right? And how corporations are kind of just like guessing what you want without actually practicing it or believing it. There is this, rainbow washing that we do see corporations engage in, where they'll try to put out token pieces and, because they think that's what people want. When in reality, what we want is well-written gay characters, well-written characters overall. If they're gay, black, women, doesn't matter to us. As long as they're well-written, good characters, well-rounded, and actually, add to the story. That's all people are asking for, okay? And as far as the director goes, I don't care who the director is, as long as they have a good story. That's it. I don't care that this director that Disney has tapped to make new Star Wars films, which is what the entire segment has been about. I don't care that she said, she enjoys making men uncomfortable. I actually think that's a good thing. I'm not a weak person. So go ahead and try to make me uncomfortable. I love it. Make me think about something. Make me reevaluate something. Challenge me. I welcome it. That's what a true person who is comfortable with themselves is all right with, wants to see. Please challenge me. Challenge some of my, preconceived notions. Put it out there. Make good social commentary within the sci-fi setting, because guess what? That is what sci-fi and a lot of good television has been all along. And that's what Star Trek has done, and that's what Star Wars has done. And that's why I love both of them, by the way. Now, funny enough, getting back to conservatives, right, and their obsession with Star Wars and with Hollywood and with wokeness, for people who despise all these things, or despise Hollywood, for example, they desperately want to co-opt things for themselves. And that gets to a point that I've been thinking about a lot lately, okay? And it's the fact that the right wing has focused so much on shunning art and humanities that, well, they don't have any arts and humanities at all. It's not a part of conservatism anymore. And so you don't really have conservative artists and, people that are writing stories and doing TV shows. They're not putting out good movies. They're not doing all this stuff. And it makes them so mad because they really do love to see themselves up on the big screen. They can't wait to elect an actor as president, which they've already done with Ronald Reagan. They love Hollywood, and they want Hollywood's acceptance so bad, but because they don't have any artistic vision whatsoever, okay, they're stuck. They're stuck with watching what they consider to be liberal leftist propaganda. And it makes them just so angry. Because in order to make good art, You really have to write good stories. You have to have an open mind.